but to ensure everyone's safety while also maximizing the participation. This format made the most sense. We do not expect any technical difficulties, but please bear with us and should they occur. The Hicksville Water District has made a ton of progress in implementing treatment for 1,4-dioxin over the last year. The main purpose of today's meeting is to bring you up to speed on the specifics of this progress, what is left to do, and what all of this means for your water quality as well as your future and water rates. I am joined here today by my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Carl Schweitzer, Commissioner Nick Brigandy, as well as the District Superintendent Paul Granger, the District Treasurer Vincent Abatello, and the District Lead Engineer Tim McGuire from H2M Architects and Engineers. We also have the pleasure of being joined by Bill Pumptura from the Nassau County Health Department. I also like to give a quick thank you to Senator Kevin Thomas, Assemblyman Michael Montesano, and Deputy Commissioner James McCaffrey for joining us here today and continuously supporting our mission to provide the residents of this community with the highest quality water possible. After the presentation, we look forward to answering all of your questions. There are two ways that residents can ask questions. You can either submit them through the Q&A function, or you can use the raise hand button in the lower portion of your screen. Once the presentation is over, questions will be answered in the order they are received. We thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us here today. So without any further ado, we'll get started. I'm just going to read a small little statement just to give you a little background of the Hicksville Water District. The Hicksville Water District regulates and treats and delivers more than 2.5 million gallons of water to more than 48,000 residents every year. We serve more than 15,400 homes and businesses in the Hicksville, Bethpage, East Meadow, Jericho, Levittown, Syosset, and Westbury area, which encompasses 7.9 square miles of service territory. More than 90% of the water distributed to the system is used for purposes other than drinking. Our infrastructure. We have 10 treatment facilities. We have 14 wells. We have 2 elevated storage tanks. We have 3 ground storage tanks. We have more than 166 miles of water main, and we have approximately 1,600 fire hydrants. Hicksville Water District was founded in 1921, and next year we're going to be celebrating 100 years of service to the community. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Paul Granger.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Schuckman. It's a pleasure to address everyone, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us for this important update with regard to our drinking water. It's been a continuous dialogue. Some of you may have participated in our prior community meetings that were face-to-face, but given the times we're in, we felt it was prudent to do these meetings virtually because it's important to convey the information as we deal with, water quality concerns, issues, and, to update the community on the actions that we're taking. I always like to start off with the regulations and testing, because everybody's always concerned about their drinking water quality. What's in it? What is it? Is it safe to drink? So we basically have a vital role in public health protection. As you know, water is the elixir to life. So without water, there is no life. So we have the responsibility to protect the water supply and comply with federal, state, and local regulations. We're required to do testing in conjunction with the health department. The health department does their own quality control testing, and there's a lot of quality control that goes into it. Not only do we do the testing, but like I said, the health department will come in and spot check. And then the water quality that we provide, that information we make public. The public has the right to know. And every May, we do issue an annual water quality report and also a very detailed report upon request. The federal regulations are changing, and I believe starting next year, an annual water quality report will be issued. Will be a biannual water quality report. So there'll be a wealth of information, and we promote transparency. So you don't have to wait a year or every 6 months to want to know what's going on with your water. You can call us or call the health department. But here's an important thing that we do. We test for more than 170 separate parameters, above and beyond what's required in most cases by the regulations. Ranges from the simplistic of bacteria to the complex, such as synthetic organic compounds, radiological constituents, metals, and the list goes on and on. And we do testing daily, some cases weekly, monthly. It all depends on the parameter, but there's a lot of control that goes into it. We spend right now well over $100,000 a year in water quality testing, which has to be done by a New York State certified laboratory. We are projecting, based with new regulations, new requirements, that we're going to spend well over $250,000 a year for water quality testing. So there's a lot of quality control and a lot of quality insurance that goes into it. So I've been in the business since 1988, well over 30 years, and that was a fast 30 years. But the number one question I get asked, aside from do we have enough water, is how safe is our water? Whether you're out socially, whether you're out in public, and whether you're dealing with this on a professional basis, folks always want to know how's our water and how safe it is. So it really can be summed up when you kind of take a look back at history and some statistics here. So what you will see are a couple of graphs that just represent a look back in time. If you look back at the turn of the 20th century, 1900, you'll see that filtration and chlorination was introduced. And at that time, prior to a very, what we consider right now, a very simplistic advance in water treatment technology, the use of chlorine and filtration, people were dying from a waterborne disease, in this case, typhoid fever, at the same rate that people are dying of heart attacks nowadays. You know, and it's fairly common to hear somebody having a heart attack or passing away from a heart attack, unfortunately. So that death rate was pretty high. So if you look at this graph over time and then coming into modern times, hearing somebody dying from a waterborne disease in the United States or the developmental world, Europe or Canada, is virtually unheard of. Unfortunately, that happens in the third world countries. But as you can see here, the quality of our water has improved. And what does that mean? Well, if you look at the other graph, you'll see life expectancy rates. And you could see since the same period plotted out, the life expectancy has an upward trajectory. Now, of course, it's ironic. We're dealing with the COVID pandemic, and you'll see there's a little outlier here. This is the 1980 flu pandemic, which was far more deadly than what we're dealing with. I'm not downplaying COVID, but just illustrating the impact it had on life expectancy. But overall, even despite COVID that we're dealing with, the trajectory of life expectancy rates continues to go upward. And what is the underlying reason? It's the quality of our water. Just to reinforce that fact in terms of water safety, I always like to put things into perspective. How can we relate it to other things? So you'll see here in this table here, and this is based on how the EPA sets its water quality standards, and to the same extent the New York State sets its water quality standards, is it's based on a 1 in a million lifetime risk before you develop a chance of some bad health effects or death happening. And you can compare this from cigarette smoking to accidents in home to getting struck by lightning. So if you're going to drink water that complies with all federal, state, and local regulations, you got a better chance of dying from a lightning strike than you do from drinking our water. So that puts it in perspective. So the resounding answer, and I can look at everybody straight in the eye, is our water safe to drink? Absolutely. So what's spurring some new concerns with regard to emerging contaminants happens to be, and you probably heard of them, 1,4-dioxane, and the pre-fluorinated compounds, PFOA and PFOS. So the question is, what is 1,4-dioxane? Well, 1,4-dioxane is a result of industrial use primarily. It is also found in in consumer products. State did pass a law or signed into law legislation that bans the use of 1,4-dioxane in many consumer products. But our water comes from a vast underground aquifer that contains trillions of gallons of water. Unlike New York City, which has an above-ground reservoir in upstate New York, we work, we live, we play, and we manufacture in the past, and to a certain extent now, above our aquifer. But in the past, there wasn't much in terms of environmental awareness. So chemicals like 1,4-dioxane and the perfluorinated compounds unfortunately made its way into the aquifer system. Advancements in testing, looking into the future through various proactive regulatory programs, help identify these compounds, and we can detect them at very, very low levels. Recently, back in August, the state promulgated a maximum contaminant level for 1,4-dioxane at 10 parts per billion. And I'll put that into perspective on what that means. And for the perfluorinated compounds, PFOA and PFOS, at 10 parts per trillion. So it's when I look at water quality and when we look at emerging compounds, this does not indicate that the sky is falling. The programs that are out in place, such as the EPA unregulated contaminant monitoring rule, the work being done by the New York State Drinking Water Quality Council, which luckily I'm a member of, and we have other water suppliers and experts on the board. We proactively look at what compounds are out there and what technology can be used to detect them and to do a deep dive in terms of any potential health effects. So these programs are highly proactive as opposed to being reactive, such as if you heard of Flint, Michigan, and the lead problem they had there, that's something that would be a reactive result of water quality contamination, creating a serious issue. Here, there were programs that were taking advantage of to stay ahead of the curve. So that's what it really is. It's looking out on the horizon, yourself on a ship, and you're just avoiding the icebergs. And here, we did a very good job in our presentation. We'll show you, how we've kind of stayed on top of this. So the next slide. So let's put it in perspective here. What is a part per billion? And it's just, with water quality, and you saw those graphs, it's just giving you better and better quality that builds upon improving public health and the quality of life, okay? So I look back, I was looking back in historical records. Back in the 1970s, we're only testing for dozens of compounds. pH, okay? Certain metals, detergents, and it was in the part per million range. In the 1980s, technology has changed and we were able to detect volatile organic compounds and those industrial solvents we mentioned. We were able to detect synthetic compounds in the part per billion range, which is really in its equivalent of 1 second in 32 years, or 1 inch in 16,000 miles. So it's remarkable how minute you could detect those compounds. Here we are at present time, and it was in the early 2000s, between 2010 and 2015, the detection limits have improved. So we were able to detect compounds in the part per trillion range, which this is remarkable. It's 1 second in 32,000 years. It's just astounding, or equivalent of 1 inch in 16 million miles. So it's the old adage, you seek, you shall find, and that's what we're doing. And then we take this information compared to potential adverse health impacts, and that's how these standards are developed, and that's how we build upon improving water quality. So, you're hearing from the Water District. We do work in concert with the Nassau County Department of Health. Reason being, water is very important to public health. So what I'd like to do is turn this portion of the presentation over to William Provancha. He's the Director of Office of Public Water Supply Protection and Groundwater Assessment for the Nassau County Department of Health. They are a regulator. We work together because we have the same mission to provide high quality, safe water to the public we serve. So I've known Bill for many years, and it's a pleasure to have him on board. So I'll let him jump in right now.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. As Mr. Granger mentioned, I am Bill Provancha, the Director of the Office of Public Water Supply Protection and Groundwater Assessment for Nassau County Department of Health. Our office regulates the water suppliers here in Nassau County. We ensure that the water suppliers are performing the required sampling, We review the results of all samples collected by the water systems for compliance with New York State maximum contaminant levels, otherwise also known as MCLs. We perform inspections of water systems, including all the wells and treatment plants. Our department's Office of Engineering also performs plan reviews for the design changes to water systems, including new treatment plants. And we'll get into some of these new ones that are coming up. So here in Nassau County, we have 46 public water systems, which include municipality systems, villages, towns, and 2 cities have water systems. We have special water districts, such as the Hicksville Water District, and we have privately owned water systems. We have a large part of the South Shore, which is run by New York American Water, which is a private company. So of these 46 water systems, they consist of over approximately 400 public water supply wells, 130 water storage tanks, and over 4,800 miles of water mains, which deliver clean drinking water to homes and businesses. Water systems are required by New York State Sanitary Code to conduct monitoring of the source and distribution water. Nassau County Department of Health conducts its own surveillance monitoring. We go out and sample to provide a double check on what's out there and confirm what the water systems are getting out there in their systems. In some cases, we require the water systems to conduct increased monitoring increased monitoring frequencies beyond what the state health department requires, especially if we start seeing contaminants in a well or in the system. We want to make sure that they're sampling more often to make sure that it doesn't get too high that it exceeds an MCL. We require water systems to reduce the use of a well, or in some cases remove the well from service if it's approaching or exceeds an MCL. As Paul mentioned, we sample over 150 different contaminants, in some cases even more than that. They're sampled for bacteriological, inorganics, organic contaminants, pesticides, herbicides, radiologicals. Monitoring frequencies can vary depending on the contaminant involved, depending on the levels that are being found, and also based on the population that the water is serving. After all this sampling is done, the samples are the results are then reported in an annual water quality report to the consumers by the water system. Those annual water quality reports are reviewed by this department for accuracy before they're sent out. The health department and the water systems review all the monitoring results. We make sure that all the water is safe. The Hicksville Water District has been meeting all of their sampling requirements and providing water that is safe to drink. How are new contaminants identified? Paul mentioned this a little bit. The EPA has an unregulated contaminant rule where water systems that are over 10,000 in population have to collect samples for contaminants that are suspected to be present in drinking water that do not currently have health-based standards set under the Safe Drinking Water Act. In some cases, they are also looking at certain contaminants to see if the current MCLs need to be lowered based on new science information. This sampling has to be done every 5 years. The EPA comes up with a new list of contaminants to look at. Under the third round of this rule, UCMR 3, which was conducted from 2013 to 2015, sampling was done by water systems with over 10,000 population, which included Hicksville Water District, for 30 new contaminant candidates to be tested. This included 1,4-dioxane, PFOA, and PFOS. The results of this UCMR 3 study showed that three contaminants, 1,4-dioxane, PFOA, which is perfluorooctanoic acid, and PFOS, which is perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. These three contaminants were found in a number of water systems throughout New York State. And as of now, the EPA has not moved towards adopting new MCLs. However, for these contaminants, New York State decided to investigate the need for adopting its own MCLs based on the prevalence of these contaminants throughout the state. It formed a New York State Drinking Water Quality Council, as Paul had mentioned, which was made up of scientists, environmentalists, and water industry personnel to further evaluate the data and make a proposal for new MCLs for these three contaminants. In July 2019, New York State Health Department proposed new MCLs based on the recommendations by this New York State Drinking Water Quality Council. And they proposed an MCL of 1 part per billion for 1,4-dioxane, which is 1 microgram per liter. And as Paul was mentioning, that's like basically like 1 second in 32 years, if you're comparing how much is actually there. They came up with 10 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS. Again, that's like one part per trillion is 1 nanogram per liter, which is like seeing 1 second in every 32,000 years. So these are really small quantities that they've come up with for these MCLs. And New York State is the first state with an MCL now for 1,4-dioxane. These MCLs are set at low levels, very low levels, well below those that would have any immediate health effects. They're based on increasing, for an increasing protection over a lifetime of exposure to make the drinking water even safer than it already is. In Nassau County, with these new MCLs, we have 85 wells. Remember I said we have about 400 wells in Nassau County. We have 85 wells that have 1,4-dioxane over the new MCL of 1 part per billion. We have 38 wells with PFOA or PFOS over the new MCL of 10 parts per trillion. 24 of our 46 water systems are required now to perform immediate action to meet these new compliance deadlines. So there's a lot of work that's already been going on, but there's a lot of work ahead of us for these water systems. Typical treatment methods are not effective for moving 1,4-dioxane, including home filters. Home filter is not going to take out 1,4-dioxane. So there's new treatment out there, new to New York State anyway. AOP treatment, we'll get into that a little bit. And as far as removal of PFOA and PFOS, carbon filtration, which has been commonly used and is in some home filters, it's effective to move the PFOA and PFOS. Now, if you're going to use home filters, you got to be careful because you want to make sure you get one that works and that you maintain it according to the manufacturer's directions. So normally we don't recommend home filters, but you do want to make sure if you do use one that you're going to use one that and make sure you maintain it properly according to the manufacturer. Okay, so advanced water treatment, 1,4-dioxane, the main new treatment out there is advanced oxidation process. This is new technology. Currently, we have 7 plants that have been approved by the State Health Department, and they're in service now in Nassau County, including a few here, a few in Hicksville Water District. This process will be explained a little bit more, I think, in the next part of the presentation. PFOA, PFOS, again, is removed by carbon filtration. GAC is granular activated carbon. Nassau County engineers here are working closely with the New York State Health Department officials, Nassau County Water Systems, in a partnership to process the plan reviews and approvals for construction of these new treatment facilities in a timely manner so the water districts can come into compliance with the new regulations and provide an even safer drinking water. The ultimate goal by us, the state and the water systems here at the health department is to provide safe and clean drinking water. We all work and live and drink the water here in Nassau County. Our job is to work together towards the same goal for providing safe, clean drinking water. And I guess turn it over back to Paul. Can't hear you, Paul. Paul, you're on mute. There you go.
I'm on mute. Okay. I always fall into that mute trap, the problem with the virtual meetings, but we're back on. Bill, thank you very much. He'll be available for any questions towards the end of the presentation. But I think this really segues into the next part of the presentation is, the regulations have been established. And just want to give a little perspective on how fast the regulations were established. And it was done at the state level because the EPA, has not been acting in any expedient fashion. So New York State formed the Drinking Water Quality Council. The first meetings were held, I'm losing track of time, around 2018, early 2018, late 2017. And an MCL for 1,4-dioxane PFOA, PFOS was recommended in late 2018. And here we are in 2020, and you have maximum contaminant level that's been adopted. It's really record time. We do work with the health department. We appreciate the relationship we have, but we, with regard to the adopting of the new MCL, we said, well, that's very challenging, difficult, if not impossible to do in such a short period of time, because you'll see in this presentation, the advanced oxidation process is complex, it's new, and you do want to move fast, but you don't want to move too fast to create unintended consequences. So credit to the health department. They listened to us, and they developed a mechanism to reward supply systems, which many are on Long Island, for moving forward. And I'm going to talk to you about the timeline and what proactive actions the district's taken. So we've been applied for and been provided a compliance deferral, which means we're not in violation of the state sanitary code because of the actions we have taken and the actions that we will be taking to moving forward. So what does this mean? This does not mean it's kicking the can down the road. What it does is it provides an opportunity for us to effectively communicate to all of our residents in terms of the water quality, what actions we're taking, and you have the right to know. So we'll have on our website very shortly is updated water quality data, notification in terms of where we're at and what our schedule is, and mitigation measures we're taking to minimize exposure to the emerging compounds. We've been granted a 2-year deferral. We're making every effort to meet, expectations, not taking the whole 2 years, so to speak, to have everything back online. So I just wanted to at least, and of course here we go. My computer is misbehaving a little bit. So, Bill gave you a glimpse in terms of the history of 1,4-dioxane, but it's been detected in more than 70% of the drinking water supply wells across Long Island. So it was a call to action, so to speak, when those detections occurred. So we're not alone, although Hicksville is heavily impacted. The Water District did its sampling in 2013, and at that time, it found concentrations ranging from 0.4 parts per billion to 34 parts per billion. And prior to the promulgation of the MCL, the maximum contaminant level for 1,4-dioxane was 50 parts per billion. But when the district received the information back in 2016, it didn't wait for the promulgation of an MCL. It found, the board found, and the management team at the time found the level to be disconcerting and took immediate action to take the supply well offline. I'll just give you a little background, at least, with the commissioners, and I've known them for a long time, and I've been with the district for little over a year and a half. Not only do they serve the community as water commissioners, but all three of them are volunteer firefighters and have had leadership positions in the Hicksville Fire Department. And like firefighters do, they don't run away from the problem. They ran into the problem. They saw smoke and they started taking action immediately. So they didn't, we actually had the wheels in motion even prior to the creation of the State Drinking Water Quality Council. So really, you know, our mission, and you know, we do put our money where our mouth is that, you know, we started doing that deep dive as things became more into focus. You know, the first action was to take the well offline, start doing the homework, start doing the research. Locally, we've had 10 wells that have exceeded the new regulations at 1 part per billion. But what the district undertook smartly was the wells with the highest 1,4-dioxane concentrations, they attacked. Plant 4 and Plant 1. So you'll see here, once we started getting a little bit better information in terms of where the MCL was heading, more information on the technology, the board took action. They implemented emergency resolutions. So you can see in this timeline here, back in July of 2019, they started the pilot testing. They started issuing resolutions to secure equipment. So the pilot testing was done because you don't want to make a big investment and you want to make sure that the treatment works. So it's a small scale test at all the wells that are impacted to make sure that there's no unintended consequences and that you wisely invest your money in effective wellhead treatment. And what the district did once we got successful results, passed emergency resolutions so that we could leverage equipment and contractors to fast track construction. And we have successfully implemented interim wellhead treatment at 2 of our sites in record time based on those actions. And we're experiencing success there, which we'll give you some more details on. So here's the timeline that shows, you know, how we got things online and how the whole process progresses. It does take time, not only the construction, but since this is new technology, the health department has an active role here. It's not that we roll this out and here we are, we're good to go. There was an enormous amount of testing that went into this, an enormous amount of review by the state and county health departments to make sure that we've got this right. And, you know, both plants 1 and 4 were commissioned in October, this past October. But what's remarkable, amidst the pandemic, we didn't lose a step. We just kept on pushing, and, you know, compliments to my staff, the team here at Hicksville Water, the health department, because they were up to their eyeballs in COVID and still are, and our contractors and vendors, because some of the specialty equipment have long lead times, but we were able to leverage our relationships to expedite the building of these sophisticated treatment systems. So the good news is that the dioxin treatment system is up and running. So what I'd like to do is turn this portion of the presentation over to Tim McGuire. He's a project manager with H2M Architects and Engineers. I've known Tim for a while when he first came to H2M and cut his teeth in the environmental engineering water supply business. And he has played a very prominent role on Long Island with research, making recommendations and implementing the wellhead treatment for 1,4-dioxane. So Tim, if you'd like to take over. Might be on mute, Tim.
Got to unmute Tim.
Okay. I can't hear you, Tim, unfortunately.
Tim, I guess you're still muted because we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Tim. Yeah, it's still no sound, Tim.
Tim, check and see if your computer microphone is muted accidentally, not just the Zoom one.
While Tim is troubleshooting and to keep us on schedule here. So what you see here is a photo of a advanced oxidation treatment unit that uses UV hydrogen peroxide as an oxidant. So Tim, once you get your sound, just jump right in.
How is that? Can you hear me now?
That's good. We're good, Tim. All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry about that.
All right.
Anyways, thank you, Paul, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for bearing with my technical difficulties. I think we're all getting used to the Zoom life. But before I get started, I'd like to commend the district, the board, the superintendent, and the staff on their quick action to implement treatment at the most impacted sites. This response to these emerging contaminants is truly unprecedented. I know we hear that term a lot, but I'm very proud of what we accomplished in such a short period of time. We'd also like to commend New York State and Nassau County Department of Health for being a valuable partner through design and construction. AOP regulatory review was prioritized, and I think we may have been the only other industry allocated staff during the pandemic to handle the regulatory reviews and the rigorous pilot testing and performance testing reviews that were required to ensure safety and efficacy within the time to meet the compliance date. Advanced oxidation process treatment is a new technology in New York State for drinking water treatment. The technology has undergone more than 5 years of evaluation by New York State DOH to validate treatment capability and safety. The time and effort and funding invested by the Hicksville Water District and several other Long Island water suppliers over the last 2 to 3 years helped close the knowledge and data gap regarding the wide use of this technology on Long Island and establish AOP as the best available and recommended treatment technology by the New York State DOH for 1,4-dioxane removal. The commitment shown by Long Island water suppliers well before there was a regulation to plan for the treatment of this contaminant should be commended. And we would not be in this position today if we're not for water suppliers like the Hicksville Water District, who are committed to address new contamination when it's found. And as Paul alluded, a side benefit of the AOP system is that it requires GAC that is effective in removing PFOA and PFAS. If these compounds are detected at the wellhead, they will be removed. Currently at Plant 4 and Plant 1, I don't believe we've had any detections to date. So it's good to know that these systems will be able to handle any future contamination if encountered. In addition, the systems can also be upgraded to remove other fluorinated compounds if detected and regulated. Next slide. The new advanced oxidation treatment systems at Plant 1 and Plant 4 can treat up to 6 million gallons per day, which is just a little less than the average amount of water consumed per day in the district. The emergency actions taken by the district include pilots, emergency purchases, design, regulatory review, and build approach, all happening concurrently, and selection of contractors, which shrank selection of experienced contractors that shrank the project timeline from what is typically 2 to 3 years to less than 12 months. The district is on track to implement interim treatment at Plant 5 and 9 for the summer pumping season in 2021. This will add an additional 10 million gallons of treated capacity and allow the district to meet summer demands while complying with New York State regulations. The district's also on track to complete its first permanent facility at the administration plant site, which is Plant 8 in 2022. This project has followed a traditional track and will be completed over 2 years from inception. Next slide, Paul. As I previously mentioned, advanced oxidation for drinking water treatment in New York State is a new technology. It requires sophisticated equipment to apply the required UV light dose and the required dose of an oxidant, which in this case is hydrogen peroxide. And together it creates a chemical reaction that destroys organic contaminants like 1,4-dioxane. The advancement in technology from what the water industry on Long Island has been operating to what's required now, I would equate it to the transition from a flip phone to a smartphone. Throughout all the training sessions, the district staff has been dedicated, inquisitive, and attentive. They've successfully completed training and have a great understanding of how this technology works, which is a testament to the staff that Paul employs over at the district. Following the advanced oxidation system are the GAC filters. The filters are loaded with 40,000 pounds of activated carbon. The filters polish residual oxidant and other remaining volatile organic compounds. The filters were sized to accept a variety of media, so the district can customize that media for the contamination that it sees, so it can be filtered out should other contaminants be identified in the future. The general flow of water in Hicksville and all other Long Island water systems is water is pumped from a groundwater well through any pre-treatment systems like nitrate treatment and air stripping at plant 1 or just air stripping at plant 4. Then AOP for 1,4-dioxane removal, GAC for polishing, followed by more typical treatment mechanisms for pH and disinfection, and out to the consumer. Next slide, Paul. The cost for this level of treatment is certainly not cheap. In order to install the treatment on 11 of the 14 wells that are required, the district plans to spend $70 million. Without any financial assistance, the burden on the Hicksville consumers is certainly substantial. The debt service over 20 years is estimated to be $4.8 million annually. Operating expenses, which are composed primarily of electric to generate the UV light and laboratory testing to validate the safety and performance of the system, is over $1.8 million annually. The required treatment will increase the district's budget over 50% from $12 million to $18.8 million. The district has taken every step they can to reduce the burden on the Hicksville ratepayer, including pursuing industrial polluters responsible for the contamination, applying for state and federal grants, and applying for low interest financing. And with that, I'll return it back to Paul and Vinny.
Hey, thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. And Tim will be available for questions. I'm just making sure I'm muted. Okay.
I'm going to go on mute now, so hopefully I don't have any troubles coming back.
Okay. And Tim will be available for questions at the end. So what I'd like to do at this point is introduce our treasurer, Vincent Abatello, and he will give an overview of the funding for the treatment projects. And obviously, since it's a significant capital investment, there will be a need to raise rates, and he'll go over that. So Vinny, if you'd like to take over.
Good afternoon, everyone. Vinny Abatello with the Hicksville Water District. Over 13 years in the water industry. I do have to say this board has always been ahead of the curve, and it shows with 1-4. As Timmy alluded earlier, $70 million to remove all these contaminants. So the board went out, and the first thing they did, and they said, we got to attack these pollutants. And they went back to the earlier days and went after the pollutants and have continue to go after the pollutants as well. And they've received a significant amount of settlement money to offset some of these costs for Plant 1 and for Plant 5. Another thing that they did is, since this is an unfunded mandate, we pursue, and they went, and we still go after any money, federal, state, local, that we can gather. Currently, we've received over $17 million in grant funding. The way grant funding works is you don't get dollar for dollar. You have to spend the money, and then you get reimbursed 60% of it. It's helping, but it still does not cover the $7 million. And the last resort that anybody ever wants to go to is bonding. A few years back, when Plant 4 came out with the high 1-4, they started planning and they went out for $20 million in bonding, just over $20 million in bonding. And that bonding is being used and was used to pay for 1 and 4 and some other sites. The next slide. So how does the water district receive its revenue to pay for all these items outside of the grant funding, the bonding, and the litigations? Money comes in mainly from 2 sources: your quarterly bill and also your taxes. So what the district said was, we can't bond all this, we have to plan for the future, and they went out and had a study done on what the rates should be based on the expenses being incurred on the annual budget and also capital costs. The study came back with significant raises that should be implemented on the quarterly bills based on water usage. And the board said, let's take a reserve approach. Let's raise the rates this year. Let's analyze them for a couple of years. And if we need to go back, we'll go back. But we're still going to go out and pursue getting pollutants to pay for it and also receive grant funding. So right now, our water rates will be increasing, and it's planned with the 2021 budget for a minimum amount. The current rate is $9 per 10,000 gallons. That will be increasing to $12 per 10,000 gallons, which on average between all our accounts is about $6 a quarter. With this being said, we were able to squeeze our operating expenses for the 2021 budget, and we did not raise taxes. We kept taxes flat. Next slide. The next 2 slides, we said, what's it going to cost the average person? So on this slide here is for residential accounts, and the next one's on commercial. So the district bills quarterly. So the top example is a customer for the 2019 year. They used 111,000 gallons. Those 111,000 gallons cost them $114.50, which equated to 31 cents a day for 111,000 gallons. With the new rate structure, that $114.50 will increase to $152.30, which drives that daily amount from 31 cents to 42 cents. It's a minimal increase, especially when you consider when we go to the local supermarket and buy a bottle of water for over $1, and that's 8 ounces. The next example is very similar. It's a customer who used a little bit more water, but his daily average goes from 36 cents to 47 cents for the day. And Paul, can you switch me to the commercial side? Next slide. The commercial side. We said, let's take a couple different types of stores. We took a strip mall, we took a deli, and we took a supermarket, and did the same analysis. What did it cost in 2019? What would it cost under the new rate structure? For that deli, who used 359,000 gallons, the strip mall, who used 359,000 gallons, paid $563.25 in 19. The new rate structure would be $763.20. The daily effect is from $1.54 a day to $2.09 a day. For a deli in the district, they used 42,000 gallons for the year. It cost them $41 in 2019, and the new rate structure would have been $54.50, 15 cents a day, $1.05 a week. Last but not least is a supermarket. We did the same analysis. They used 768,000 gallons. It cost them $1,524.40 in 2019. It would have cost them $2,072 for that 768,000 gallons. And the daily amount was $5.68 under the new rate structure. The next slide. So, like I said earlier, your water bill, our revenue consists of two pieces, taxes and also amount billed on a quarterly basis. So we took an average home and we said, what were their taxes that they paid the water district, which was $254.72. And what was their annual water bill? $436.38. This is a resident who used a little bit more than what we showed earlier. If I break that down to a daily amount, it was $1.20 a day. This chart shows a normal household, what their average expenses are, and for unlimited amount of healthy, safe water, an average home would be paying combined $37 a month in water. Compared to a cell phone of $80, on average $80, heating of $190, internet of $220, and electric of $240. Water is very cheap. We have it unlimited amount at your tap you have, and we're trying to be as prudent as we can with our overall expenses. That's all I got, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Vinny. So, we're approaching the end, and I just wanted to sum up with some conclusions that, as we discussed, the New York State Health Department has come up with new regulations for emerging compounds, and our water district is responding as quick as possible. Kind of like when they teach you in driver's ed, you don't want to overdrive your headlights when you're driving in the fog. Same thing here. We want to do it in a effective, efficient, and swift manner, and that's what we're proceeding. Obviously, keeping the public water supply safe is our concern. We're the Hicksville Water District, governed by Hicksville residents, serving Hicksville residents. The new advanced oxidation treatment, they're going to be installed when we're at the end of this, capital improvement program. 11 of our 14 wells will have wellhead treatment in place. And we're implementing a modest rate increase instead of raising taxes to combat increasing costs. While we demonstrated that the cost of water is really a low part of the utility budget for most residents, the district doesn't want to take that for granted. It is low, yes, but we're mindful that there's other budgetary pressures on our residents, and we're going to do our part to keep our rates as low as possible. So the old motto is, the highest quality water at the lowest possible cost. But with that, we really need assistance from our elected officials on behalf of our residents to really ensure that water rates do not get out of control or escalate further. And we're thankful for the grants that we've received to date, but you could see with that enormous number we're dealing with, we still need more funding. And we're hopeful that as we get past the election and the future gets brighter, that there will be more money and that we can count on our elected officials to help us out moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Commissioner Schuckman.
All right, thanks, Paul. I want to thank Paul, Vinny, and Bill from Nassau County Health Department, and Tim from our engineering firm. At this point, Greg, I'll ask if you have any people that put questions up on the Q&A.
Yeah, there are a couple questions rolling through the Q&A. Paul, can you see those?
Yes, I can. So it's from Cindy Hudson, and she says she has two questions. So we'll start with question one. Do the school districts know about these water rate increases for 2021 so they can calculate impact on their budgets? Well, we are just, I'll let Vinny continue a little bit further on that, but we are just starting with the public outreach process, and we certainly will notify all our ratepayers, not only the residents, but the municipal partners, and also our commercial residents also. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Vinny?
Yeah, this was the beginning. We had our budget hearings, and then this was our beginning push of getting the new rate increases out. They will be out in this presentation. We have a blast set up for tomorrow to go out, and we also have a few other on the bottom of the monthly bills would be go to our website for updated information on rates and a few other things. We will be on social media. We plan on getting it out there as much as we can, so there's no surprises.
Thank you, Vinny. And the second question is, can we talk about the impacts of large developments such as the Seritage project? How does it impact pollutants rates? Kind of said, you thought we said the water is trying to, I thought Granger said we clean as much water per day as we consume. So I guess basically the question here is, how does the Seritage project impact those capabilities? I guess quantity and quality, if I can glean that out. Right now, what is interesting with the folks from Seritage, they still need to provide us with additional information. A little disappointed that they haven't provided us with the necessary information. We did meet early on, prior to my coming on board, and they were told that more information is needed. So we really can't assess its impact on our system right now until they come back to us with some firm consumption numbers, both domestic and fire flow protection. So really the ball's in their court. Trust us. The board, our team will go through all the information that they provide us to make sure that it doesn't have an adverse impact on quantity or ability to serve, and also with regard to the impact to water quality. So that's where we are right now. So I wish I had more of an answer, but short of not having anything definitive, we really can't comment one way or the other. But I do encourage you, as this project does move forward and you have those questions, just reach out to the Water District and we'd be glad to provide you with that information. So hopefully that's covered. Next question from Elthira Brewster. Sorry if I mispronounced the first name. You're asking if we're using reverse osmosis systems in the Hicksville Water District. I'll let Tim handle that. The answer is no, but he's a chemical engineer and this is his wheelhouse.
Thank you, Paul. Did I come off mute okay?
Yes.
All right. All right. The challenge with reverse osmosis on the large scale municipal level is what do we do with the residuals? So concentrating that waste creates an issue for down the line. So whether we're trucking it or piping it to wastewater treatment plants and so on and so forth, we're really not resolving the issue at hand. In addition, 1,4-dioxane is not removed efficiently from reverse osmosis. So we chose to look into a more economical approach, which was the AOP approach with UV light and oxidation to actually destroy the chemicals so we're not creating any more residuals, which would impact costs at wastewater treatment plants and so on and so forth. So this is certainly the best available technology at this point for 1,4-dioxane. And in addition, because we're using GAC, it also helps remove the perfluorinated compounds.
Thank you, Tim. And further part of this question is also, is the AOP system up and running now? At two of our most highly impacted sites, the answer is yes. We have 2 more planned. They're going to be in construction very shortly and up and running in the summer of 2021. We do have plant sites that are not impacted that we're going to put in lead position. We also have plant sites that have wellhead treatment that we will put in the lead position. Only will we use wells that are above the 1 part per billion MCL should we need it to avoid having low pressures that would create more adverse consequences. And obviously you want to make sure you have fire flow protection. But this information, in terms of how we operate, how we're doing with regard to implementing wellhead treatment, will be available on our website. Regulatory, the health department requires us to update it quarterly. We're going to do it more frequently because I think it's important that we keep the dialogue going with the public. And we encourage the public here, if you have not signed up, you could email us to info@hicksvillewater.org and be part of our email. We do issue email blasts and information. So if you want to get information pushed to you, just shoot your contact information email to info@hicksvillewater.org, and we'll gladly provide it to you.
Paul,
The other
actually,
part of this question-
just to chime in, even simpler, if anybody's not on the email list and wants to be, they can just go to hicksvillewater.org, and a pop-up should come up on the homepage for they can just fill it out, and it'll auto-populate our email list.
That sounds simple to me. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate
Got it.
So can residents be assured the tap water is safe to drink? Absolutely. And the health department is monitoring that. And if it's not safe to drink, we're required to provide public notification. It's a right to know process here. And then lastly is asked, should we use a Brita filter type filters for drinking water? The answer is no. I know Bill covered it in his presentation. And, Brita, if you don't like the taste of chlorine, we do disinfect our water. The Brita is effective for removing chlorine, but we do the filtration for you. We have wellhead treatment systems that remove the trace organic compounds. We have nitrate removal treatment systems that remove high levels of nitrate. And now with the using the advanced oxidation systems, you're getting very highly treated water that goes out to you. So we don't advocate it. If it's more for aesthetics and getting rid of the chlorine taste and odor, that's fine. And I think we have some more questions, so let me go down there. Bill, anything you want to add to that? You're on mute.
Yes. Hi. This is about, as far as the,
I guess.
I was looking at the
Safety
East
of the
Meadow
water.
question next, actually.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Yeah, I don't have anything further on that question.
All right. So next is Manib.
Paul, I think
Zia.
just to finish up on that question, just important to know that the GAC filters that we use are large scale Brita filters. So we're already doing it.
Yeah, good point.
Just
Good point. I tend to forget. Sometimes I don't see the forest amongst the trees, or vice versa. So that's a good point. So we have a question from Manib.
I'm sorry,
Great.
actually, yeah, as far as the Brita filters, we don't normally recommend them, but if they are used, as long as you change the cartridges and stuff like that periodically, but they don't really take out the AOP at all. They might take out some of the PFOAs and stuff, but they're not, I wouldn't rely on that as being what you're going to try to take out these contaminants with.
Right.
The AOP seems to be the only proven thing for taking out 1,4-dioxane effectively.
Yeah, and it's a good opportunity for me to reinforce to the community that the NSF, National Sanitation Foundation, used to be on the regulatory review board for them, and in Underwriters Lab, certified drinking water filters. There is no known NSF or UL certified drinking water filter that removes 1,4-dioxane. If you have a filter salesman that claims that their unit can do it, they are lying to you. So I just want to keep it that simple. And I hate seeing people taken advantage of needlessly. So Manib Zia, and once again, I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. The question is water distributed from AOP systems at plants 1 and 4 throughout Hicksville Water District, or does it go to particular residential zones? Actually, a very intelligent question. Hicksville, because we're relatively flat, we are one pressure zone. So, one plant may provide more water to another area, but in this case, the answer is yes. The water, no matter where you are in Hicksville, it gets commingled. Our storage tanks hold the water and it gets conveyed. And you know, it's not one zone gets water from one area more than the other. Next question is again from Cindy Hudson, and this goes back to the Seritage project. It says their project can't be approved before they submit the info to you. The answer is yes. In order to any building, whether it's Seritage or even a single-family home that's going up, the town will not grant permits unless there is a letter of water availability issued. And we're not there yet. And once again, we don't have the information to opine one way or the other. Okay. From an anonymous attendee.
Paul, Paul?
Yes.
Paul, that was a question, that was a question that came up early during the presentation about backflow inspections and the requirement, why we have a requirement annually. And I answered by saying that New York State Sanitary Code in Part 5, and as part of the Nassau County Health Ordinance, it's required that we do the annual testing. So those are two follow-up questions to my answer.
Oh, okay. I guess the way the questions are coming in, I didn't see that. Sorry. Then I have from an anonymous, then why, does that tie into the why does not East Meadow have it?
Correct.
Yeah, all those
Okay,
tie into
got
the
it.
same question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think, so from an anonymous attendee, we've answered that question. So we have Dan Ryan. How do I know?
No.
That's
Paul, I think that they came up as a follow-up. So the question was, why do we require backflow testing annually? And I provided the answer that it's a requirement from the state and the county. And then I guess the follow-up was, well, then why does East Meadow not have it? So it's not Nassau County, definitely. And then is East Meadow not in New York State or Nassau County? And referring to me, is last time she checked, he checked, it was, maybe it moved. So if you can just spend maybe, a short time or the county explaining that this is an annual requirement.
So you're talking about the
All right.
backflow testing, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yep.
Backflow devices, double check valves and RPZs are required by the state to be tested annually. Some water systems require double check valves on residential home sprinklers. If that's where they're going with the question, residential home sprinklers, the state allows either pressure vacuum breakers or double check valves. If the double check valve is installed, it's required to be tested annually. Vacuum breakers are not required to be tested annually. I know the state during this pandemic, they want water systems really to focus more on the commercial and more hazardous facilities this year, as far as making sure that they get all of their devices tested. But as far as residential, even the double check valves, if a water system does not obtain 100% testing this year, we're not going to be, issuing any violations on a water system for that. We understand that homeowners, particularly right now, some of them don't want to have people come into their houses to test devices, and we understand that as far as if the, as far as a residential home sprinkler system is not necessarily the most hazardous type of situation. So we want water systems to focus on the commercial and the hazardous facilities first for this year, anyway. But there are there are variations throughout the county and water systems as far as what they require on residential sprinkler systems.
And I believe East Meadow, that would be town of Hempstead, correct?
Yes, it's town of Hempstead.
And I live in the town of Hempstead, and well, because I'm in the business, I had my device tested, but they do require annual testing of their device, just like Hicksville does. Although I could have gotten an exemption, but being in the water business, you got to do the right thing. So, okay, thanks, Carl. I appreciate that. It's just one of the quirks. I missed the question because of the quirks of Zoom, but this is why we have the commissioners jumping in. That's helpful. Dan Ryan asked a question. How do I know when the well that services my home will be treated? Is it currently impacted? And it goes back to the first question. is that there's no wells allocated to regions in the district. We are a single pressure zone. Our water gets commingled, which makes it more effective for us to implement strategies to provide water that has 1,4-dioxane that is less than the maximum contaminant level. So we are not impacted. We're taking the action. And, once again, to see how we're doing, you will be getting notices from us. And you could also contact us, go to our Facebook page, our website, and we'll have periodic notification in terms of what we're doing to move forward and, address the 1,4-dioxane. I think I have all the questions. Greg, you want to take a quick look?
Yeah, I think
Do all the raised-
that's everything I can see. But if there is a resident by chance furiously typing to get their question in, just in case it is not missed, you can also use the hand raising option, and we can allow you to say it again, just to save you time. I want to make sure anything's missed.
Well, I'll let Bill close things up. Once again, we're here 24/7. I asked the question last night. We had a session that, we had that it wasn't even a hurricane, a tropical storm that blew through. And you notice that the water flowed, and that's because we have standby power. You might have lost power, unfortunately. But, we're here 24/7. We keep the water flowing 24/7. So reach out to us 24/7. Commissioner Schuckman?
All right. Again, I just want to thank our panel, my fellow commissioners, Carl Schweitzer, Nick Brigandy, the superintendent, Nassau County Health, our engineering firm, and my treasurer. Again, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule today, all our consumers for getting on our virtual conference call. Again, if you have any other questions going forward, by all means, reach out to District Superintendent. And I just ask everyone be safe and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Went better? Went
Yeah.
good?